me, right? Like my work, my role.
Can you answer that? Can you say what I think it's a good point. Would you define for me how you see, like, what your role is?
I don't know what my role is anymore. I'll be totally honest with you, man. I feel very conflicted about that question.
Well, I'll also be very candid with you, man. I don't think you have much of a role. I think your role is to be an elitist writer who appeals to the elite of the Democratic Party who are totally out of touch with the political realities on the ground. That's pretty clear from this discussion. And this discussion, of course, is centered around the conflict between Ezra Klein and Ta-Nehisi Coates regarding the characterization of Charlie Kirk by Ezra Klein as a person who's doing politics the right way, or whatever he said. He's basically glorifying him, whitewashing him in a very weird way. So we're going to have a very irritating, annoying discussion between these two, mostly because of Ezra Klein, and also because Ta-Nehisi Coates does not really directly check Ezra Klein the way that Ezra Klein needs to be checked. Ezra Klein is so far off the mark. His political analysis is so bad. His political instincts are so bad. He is so way off of everything that he really does need a harsh reality check.
I think there's something very unsettled in the sort of broad coalition of the left around the work of politics, around who we talk to and when and how. When is that work moral? When is it necessary? When is it a betrayal?
Ezra Klein tries to frame this as, when should we talk to people? Who are we allowed to talk to? Well, you can talk to anyone you want to talk to, and you're allowed to. But see, the problem is he's not differentiating between what goes on online and what happens in the real world, because his real world is online. So if he says something or someone says something and online it creates a controversy, well, that is the real world to Ezra Klein. So you're not allowed to do things. You are allowed to do things. In reality, though, not on the internet, you are allowed to talk to whoever you want to. That's not the problem here. But in terms of supporting and whitewashing someone who has extensively propagated bigotry and hatred, well, that is going to get you excommunicated from a bunch of people. They're not going to like that. And it's not along the lines of some little, some minor little disagreement online and someone canceling you for a very stupid reason. This is a big reason. Now, I don't think you should necessarily be canceled for this, but I think anyone who's serious about politics would look at you and think that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, that you're totally out of touch with reality. And we'll get into all of those reasons as we get through some of this video.
I worry we are already in a cycle of political violence, of mimetic violence. I think about Pelosi. I think about Shapiro. I think about the near assassination on Trump. I think about when after that happened, I thought about me. I thought about you. I thought about all kinds of people I know.
I think what really happened here, I think it's safe to say that what really happened here is that Ezra Klein is very worried about white-on-white violence. He is totally divorced from the other world that all the non-whites live in and the violence that is put onto them and the world that they live in and the apprehension that they have, myself included, which, we're not necessarily as scared and as shook as Ezra Klein is here because we're sort of just used to reality, but we do live in this world where a lot of bad things can happen to us, a lot of violent things, a lot of state violence. Yes, so the answer is to embrace bigotry and hatred and to whitewash it and just be okay with it, because it'll keep the peace. As long as we can keep the peace, why not agree with white nationalism and white supremacy and things like that? Why not normalize it? Normalize bigotry if it could possibly turn down some political violence, which, by the way, there's just violence and more violence in this country. Many of these things were done, some of the things that he mentioned, by people who are clearly very unstable, lone wolf actors. No one really knows what's behind it besides their mental illness or whatever the hell else motivated them to do these violent acts. So yes, the whole society is very violent, not to mention all the school shootings and stuff. So people in this country are very violent in general. But it seems like maybe Ezra Klein's a little worried about himself because Charlie Kirk was a political commentator, activist. So maybe Ezra Klein the big ego that he has, he's like, yes, I am also a larger than life figure, and I could be on the chopping block, so I am very fearful. Little does he know or realize that the racial minorities that he kind of wants to push to the side and disregard, they live in a state of being worried about violence and other kinds of things being done to them, by state actors, by random people. He has no clue what he is talking about, but now it hits a little close to home, and now he wants to be compassionate. He wants to just forget about the disagreements and just, whatever, a little bit of bigotry, it's fine. You're doing politics exactly the right way because you're backed by very rich people and you are given tens of millions of dollars every year by very rich conservative donors to give these speeches and do XYZ. And by the way, they're also going to get a tax break for donating to that nonprofit. But anyways, let's just continue with this.
Why are we losing?
If by we you're talking about the Democratic Party, why are we losing? Well, there are a number of reasons why we're losing, buddy. Not giving a damn about the democratic process, hand selecting our candidates of choice by superdelegates and elite circles. So instead of addressing that, which is a huge, massive problem, instead, he kind of wants to look at, well, what about the other side? Are there some people that we could appeal to on the other side? Why are we losing? Well, we'll get into that right now.
I think in many ways we've stopped doing politics. We've written a lot of people off. And in writing them off, we are losing and we are unable to protect ourselves, unable to protect them.
Definitely. We have written off people who are bigots and racists, and you should never write them off. As a matter of fact, you should write them in, and then all of the minority votes that you depend on, you should write those people off in hopes that you may get some of the other people that you wrote off. So let's try to make an overture to them, even though ideological lines are very, very polarized now, and there's little to no chance that you're going to sway enough of those kind of people, conservative people, into the Democratic Party. Let's try to do that, and let's try to piss off a huge power base within the Democratic Party, and maybe that'll work out somehow magically. And let's ignore all the realities behind why the Democrats are losing over and over and over again. I want to kind of spit everything out right now, but let's just wait to the appropriate time.
But I think of the huge backlash to Bernie Sanders for going on Joe Rogan's show because Rogan was transphobic, right? Such a big backlash that when I defended him, I became myself a Twitter trending topic.
Right.
To Elizabeth Warren for going on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher's Islamophobic. Right. There were protests at Netflix when they brought on Dave Chappelle. Right. I think there was a politics of content moderation that took hold that was more about enforcing boundaries of what, were and were not ideas we should be engaged with than about engaging with them, again, even if opportunistically.
Again, here he is stressing a lot on online sentiments and sentiments within elite circles about you shouldn't go on Joe Rogan or what about that show? If he really believes that Democrats are losing elections because of shit like that, I just don't even know what to say. Watching this whole thing, it is so frustrating to hear him talking about politics when he is talking about one little sliver of politics that exists online or within elitist circles, things that are not moving the needle and are not presenting the reasons why Democratic voters are pissed off at their own party because they view their party as a know-nothing party, as a do-nothing party, as a party that provides no hope for the future, as a party that doesn't have any popular leaders because the leaders are hand-selected by elites and elite groups, and they're just pushed on to the voters. And it's like, well, you better take this or else you're going to get whoever the bad guy is over there.
I am in a process right now of thinking we failed, right? We lost. The loss is having terrible consequences. What do we need to rethink?
Well, what we need to rethink is our entire political process, how we cultivate leadership, our agenda items. Instead of trying to not give a damn about bigotry and hatred and things like that, how about instead of pivoting that way and alienating our own base and not really attracting too many people from the other side, how about we do something, I don't know, maybe some economic populism that is definitely a wedge issue, which actually could pull over people from the other side, and it could also make everyone's life a lot better. I mean, I know it's difficult for someone like Ezra Klein to contemplate like the hardships that people go through in reality because he hasn't really been living in reality. I mean, he went from one good situation to the next. He has no connection at all to any financial, economic struggle in this country, racial injustice, anything like that. He is not part of that. He has led a very charmed life living in Irvine, I think it was, like University High or whatever. His dad was a professor at UCI, and then somehow with a 2.2 GPA, which, I mean, he's the one who came out and said that, somehow miraculously he gains admission into UC Santa Cruz, which there is a minimum GPA of 3.0 to even be considered for acceptance at any UC, so I'm not sure how he managed that. But anyways, he managed that and then transfers to UCLA and then works on Howard Dean's whatnot, whatever that was. And then he just moves on from one major liberal publication to the next and Vox and all this other stuff. He has no concept of what regular people are contending with other than something that maybe he read in an article, or like intellectually, I can understand that there are people out there that are suffering from hardships, but we've got to do my political strategy now, and that involves not getting too mad at bigots, okay? Because it makes people very uncomfortable, and we don't want to be uncomfortable.
What they took, and something that really empowered Trump in the last election, was a sense that they didn't. And like, we were against them, and if so, they were going to be against us. And I think that's, in the end, doing politics badly.
Very true. That is doing politics very, very badly because, you know, in a two-party system, when you're one party and then there's like another party, you're not supposed to be against the other party because that's very divisive. So what you should do is morph into the other party, and things will work out in a very harmonious way, which is sort of like the way we're headed. We're headed to a one-party system here, buddy. So, I mean, this guy is talking like it's 1993 or something. Like, we're in 2025. Trump is going for like full fascism. A lot of his supporters are on board with that. This is the reality that we live in. So instead of trying to somehow appeal to that base, how about you strengthen your own base and widen your own base by trying to do things for real people? The real people that Ezra Klein doesn't really know that well. But maybe that's why Ezra Klein might not be the best person to strategize on these kinds of issues.
So I've been thinking about Obamacare. When Obamacare passes, there are Democratic senators in Arkansas, in Louisiana, in West Virginia, in Missouri, in Indiana, in North Carolina, in South Dakota, in North Dakota. And I've been thinking that I think for a lot of us, to twist the line about capitalism, it has become easier to imagine the end of the country than winning a Senate seat in Missouri or Arkansas. And I think that's a problem.
Well, yes, in general, that's a problem. But then you also have to consider the circumstances behind why there were so many Democratic senators in those states in that time period. And that's because the way that politics usually works, I mean, I also have a degree in political science, Ezra Klein, from another UC, actually. I went to a UC Berkeley. But see, what also is going on at that time, Ezra, buddy, is that there was a very bad president named President George W. Bush, right? So what happens in America, at least historically, is usually, you know, things sort of flip around when like one party's in control of like the White House, then the other party has a lot of influence in Congress and stuff like that happens. And like usually there's like this balance that kind of works itself out. That's one thing. That's a little thing, okay, to consider. The other thing that you have to consider is, what is the Democratic Party offering anyone? What is the agenda? What does it stand for? No one knows what the fuck it stands for anymore, because it's been taken over by a lot of bankers and people like that who aren't really concerned about much of anything, really, other than just giving platitudes and talking about things. And yeah, it has been annoying in the past when they talk about racism or other kinds of things, because they just like to speak in these hollow little platitudes. They don't really accomplish anything. People are kind of irritated by them in general, Democrats and Republicans. They don't have a strong leadership base. They're not very democratic, even though they're the Democratic Party, because all the selections are done at the top. Look at the way that my home state of California works. I mean, the party controls everything, right? It's not really like these political figures who are good at speaking or good at convincing people who rise up and win elections. It's people that are hand-selected. And what happens in situations like that? They're not popular. They're fake. People don't necessarily like them. They're not charismatic. They don't really stand for anything other than whatever the party wants them to do. Those are some of the reasons, some of the problems that you could see with the Democratic Party, rather than just saying, oh, well, you know what? I think it's because we need to whitewash someone's legacy, and we need to just kind of overlook a lot of things. Maybe that'll help us out. The other thing that's irritating about him specifically bringing up the ACA is that many of those conservative Democrats, or so-called moderate Democrats in many of those states, are part of the reason why there was no public option. Or it's part of the reason why the best they could do even at the time, and yeah, it was a great thing to do. It has helped many people, although many other people probably could have also used the help who didn't get the help because it was too watered down. So the best that they could do was just copy a Republican healthcare plan from Mitt Romney in Massachusetts. You know, that's the downside of it. But in general, I think the Democratic Party could definitely win a lot of seats all over the country, but you kind of have to stand for something. You have to have good leadership. You have to have good things behind what's going on. And the problem the Democratic Party faces that the Republican Party in general does not face is the Republican Party can always throw raw meat to the energy of its base by doing this white supremacy shit, by doing this bigotry shit. And there's a spectrum of that. It doesn't have to be the most hardcore white supremacy stuff. That's not how things generally work. But, in shades of that, although, in fairness, Trump is doing the full-blown white supremacy thing. But anyways, that's something free that the Republican Party can do and get their base really happy. But, the Democratic Party can't just do these little useless, whatever the hell Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them were doing. Stuff like that doesn't work to show, oh, yeah, we care about racial equality. And, it doesn't work. It's false. People are not stupid enough. People know that they are suffering in real life, and stupid little symbolic gestures like that don't change anything. So the Democratic Party would actually have to do some real work to give their base something, the energy of their base, something to be excited about. But unfortunately, that would mean that the richest people don't get to have as much money. The richest businesses would not get to have as much money. So because the Democratic Party is locked into the same thing that the Republicans are locked into, servicing the wealthiest people, it causes a very difficult issue. So if your suggestion is that the Democratic Party should just morph into the Republican Party and start throwing red meat to racists and hoping that now the Democrats can also have a bunch of racists in the party, well, that's definitely a strategy, but I don't think it's going to work. Definitely not in the short term.
I have lines what I think should and should not be acceptable, but those lines clearly have no relationship to my country, the politics. And I think I've been asking the question without really having an answer. I want to be honest about this. What follows from that?
Yes, because, if my lines are in line with my morality and sense of belonging in this world and what is right and what is wrong and justice and things like that. Well, you know what? If that's a little bit too difficult, I think I should just erase the line and just not have that line anymore. And maybe Ezra Klein can do that, but I don't think a lot of us can do that. And I don't think a lot of us want to do that. And I don't think a lot of us are going to do that. And I really wish that Coates in this exchange, I mean, he was very nice and, they were kind of talking past each other this whole time. I don't think Ezra Klein was really grasping what Coates was getting at in much of this. I wish Coates would have just directly laid it on him, but that didn't happen.
How do you deal with Trump really substantially increasing his share of the black vote?
What Ezra Klein doesn't understand that he's actually asking is, how do you explain that there's like different kinds of black people? Because I thought that black people are just supposed to like the Democratic Party because that's just how it is. Are they, he doesn't understand that different color people are actually people. So they could be conservative people. They could also be liberal people. They could be all different kinds of, they're just regular people, buddy. And on top of that, when the Democratic Party is so fakely, in many ways, at least the politicians, so fakely, we're about equality, and how we're going to do equality is that Joe Biden's going to announce that, hey, guess what? If you vote for me, then I'm going to nominate a black female Supreme Court justice. Many people are actually turned off by him saying things like that and the other white elite Democrats saying stuff like that. What people would rather see if he was going to do something like that, well, it would seem more genuine if he just had a regular platform and then after the fact he happened to nominate a black female Supreme Court justice nominee or something. The Democrats, many of these white liberals are very racist in their own kind of way. So any minority in this country, you're not going to look at either party and be like, oh, well, those people really get me. Those people are really for me. The best most people can do is look at the Democratic Party because at least they're saying some of the right things. But when you look at what they do and what they actually stand for, no one really views these people like, oh, these people genuinely give a shit about these issues. People don't believe it, buddy.
A huge amount of the country, right? A majority of the country believes things about trans people, about what policy should be towards trans people, about what language is acceptable to trans people, that we would see as fundamentally and morally wrong.
Right.
And what politically, not in a column or something, but politically, should our relationship with those people be?
Again, I think Ezra Klein has a big problem understanding the difference between online disagreements, the way that those things go, where people are at each other's throats, so to speak, seem very hyperbolic and all that sort of stuff, and what goes on in the real world. So if you're talking about the politics of how do you interact with that, well, the way that you interact with things that you view are unjust is that you just oppose those things. You don't have to go on and on. You don't have to have shouting matches. You don't have to go crazy in this online sense, but you stand up for that which you believe in. It's just as simple as that. And that takes the form of legislation and other kinds of things to protect people, to not let other people do harm to different groups. I mean, it's a very simple sort of thing. But it looks like Ezra Klein's instinct here is that, well, we should just back away from all of those things. Just, actually just go in the opposite direction. Just do whatever seems to be politically expedient at the time and just take that shortcut to where exactly? Because if you abandon all of your principles and you have these hollow wins, what are you really winning? And you can't sort of just turn the tables after you win, because then you've cultivated an entire audience. It's just like having a YouTube channel, right? Let's say you realize that, hey, a lot of these right-wing sentiments, they're going to be very popular because a lot of people are looking for that kind of stuff, right? So why don't I just pivot to that and feed them. It's easy enough. I'll gain some popularity. But then the problem is you become a right-wing YouTube channel or whatever the hell the case is. You can't just like reverse it all of a sudden. You reverse it all of a sudden, let's say theoretically in politics at least, because I tricked all of you people. Now I'm in power. And then you reveal yourself or you do good things for whoever those people are in your secret way. But then the problem is then all those people revolt against you, not to mention the fact that all along the way, you have then injured, suppressed, and harmed a bunch of people. It is so nonsensical. The other thing that I want to point out here, which I think is also very irritating and offensive and shows another form of bigotry from a lot of these white liberals, I would say, is that they like to equate everything, put everything into a bucket, like, oh, black people, Hispanic people, trans people, this people, that people, let's bunch them all together. And either we're going to do a little good thing for everyone or, oh, people don't like that kind of stuff. Well, all of you guys just shut up and keep voting for us. Like everyone is not like, yeah, there is commonality between different kinds of discrimination for sure, right? On one level. But on another level, these problems and these issues that different groups face are very different. And you really trivialize all of their issues by lumping everyone together and saying, well, oh, people have some issues with trans. It's not very good. So then also some of the white supremacy. Well, let's just like leave all of this alone. Like, let's just like let that chill out for a while. And let's like try to gain some power in other ways and like try to attract a lot of just generic bigots because like people have issues with this and that. I mean, the whole thing is so ridiculous. It's like, why not also put animal rights into that as well? Why not put, conservation into that as well? Like the discrimination against plants and the earth and animals, like just put everyone all together who's not white or also, trans and gay and whatever else you want to lump into it and then just deal with it that way. This is just, it's just sickening to listen to some of these people talk about these issues.
The role I want to have is a person curiously exploring his political and intellectual interests in political peacetime.
That is literally, I'm really sorry to say, but that is like one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard in my life. So this guy who wants to be at the forefront of changing the political culture, because I can see these things that you can't see because I'm Ezra Klein. What I would like to do, like I would just love to be in a peaceful state where I just get to contemplate like political ideas with like how do you contemplate political ideas in some state of complete peace? What are the politics like in this like utopia where everything is just chilled out, everything is just perfectly fine, everything's just amazingly peaceful? What are the interesting political issues of those times? Well, there wouldn't really be any major political issues, right? So you want to just do lazy thinking that doesn't have any connection to reality, which is sort of like what you're doing right now anyways, except the only thing you don't like about right now is it's not peaceful. There's a lot of turmoil. You don't like the turmoil, but you want to think about things from very, very far away and just like play mental gymnastics with, things that are totally irrelevant to reality.
I am in the business. I'm a political opinion writer and podcaster and so on. And I'm in the business of political persuasion.
You're in the business of political persuasion, but you're not persuasive at all. And it seems like you don't really know much about politics.
I feel like me and the people who believe what I believe, not narrowly speaking, but, like the whole broad coalition, have failed in a really consequential way.
Number one, I don't think that the whole broad coalition believes what you believe. And that's a big problem for you because you don't understand how this coalition works and you don't understand what the different parts of the coalition believe because you are disconnected from many of the energetic parts of the coalition. That's a big problem, number one. Number two, the other very big issue is that the coalition, what they believed and everything with them, they are not what failed. What failed was the Democratic Party itself and the Democratic Party leadership and the Democratic Party so-called intellectuals. Now, personally, I don't think that they just, randomly failed. I don't think it was just like, oh, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know this would work. I think it goes back to the fact that the Democratic Party is captured by billionaires, elite people, and they don't want to make the changes that are needed, and they don't want to make the changes that are specifically needed by their base. And that is why their base does not like them and are not showing up for them and are not content with the bullshit that the Democratic Party is pushing in front of them and saying, well, hey, you better accept this, otherwise you're going to get Trump. People are fatigued with that. People are tired of that. It doesn't energize anybody. It doesn't excite anyone. They don't feel like they're a part of anything that truly matters. And the big disconnect for a person like you is that you are not feeling the pain that all of those people are feeling. So you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. You're talking about these little issues that make you feel uncomfortable right now, and you're going to rally the troops, and you're going to tell people what they need to do. And guess what, Ezra Klein? It doesn't matter what you say. You can go on and on and on talking all of this shit. It's not going to get the Democrats to win. They're not going to win. The only way that they're going to win at this rate is in response to people just like being upset with the Republicans, and then here and there Democrats win some elections if there are going to be free elections in the future, which also the Democratic Party has done nothing to help in all of this time. I mean, all of this has been unfolding over many, many years, not just with Trump. And the Democratic Party has done nothing to contend with that. And now all of a sudden people wake up and they want to say, oh my God, Trump, he is just this very unique threat. We can't believe this is happening. How did this happen? When anyone who has been observing politics over decades could see the slow progression to this point and the boiling point that we are at right now. I could go on and on, but I'll just leave it at that.
And I think it is.
You feel like you failed in your work.
I think there are places I failed. I mean, I think there are things I got right too. Like, I think we shouldn't have run Joe Biden again. I think I was right about that.
So basically, he doesn't feel like he's failed. He's gotten a lot right. Sure, I mean, he's a human, so here and there he's gotten some things wrong. But hey, he called that Joe Biden probably wasn't the right guy to run again. Wow, that is so astute of you. So a guy that was basically hidden from the public, that morphed into Genocide Joe and was sort of like, overseeing a genocide and then also just disappearing into the mist, and like all these people just saying, oh yeah, he's robust. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. That's amazing. You called it. No one else called it but you. That was very amazing.
I think I've gotten a lot right, but I think I've gotten definitely things wrong. But I think we are here now. Yes,
I also think that we are here now, for sure. And you got a lot right, buddy. You really got a lot right. I don't know what you got right besides the Biden thing, but you're definitely getting a lot wrong right now. A lot wrong. And we are here. And the point we're at here is where you're getting things totally wrong.
Joe Manchin, I wish he were still a senator from West Virginia, as much as I have deep disagreements with him.
Yes, Joe Manchin was definitely a positive influence on everything. He voted for Trump during Trump's first term. He voted along the lines that Trump would have liked, over half of the time. And at certain points, like 60% of the time or whatever. Definitely miss him a lot. And I can understand, hey, I'll throw you a bone. Okay. It helps the Democrats at large. Let's say they're in a situation where they need to get to 50 to have that tiebreaker vote. Yeah. Theoretically it does help to have someone like Joe Manchin, but in a lot of situations, he doesn't really help, especially where things are close, I mean, you have like a huge majority, super majority, then yeah, a few Joe Manchins and Cinemas and Fettermans and all these kind of people. Yeah, the more the merrier. We have bigger numbers on paper. But when the rubber meets the road, people like Joe Manchin aren't that much of a help, really.
I think that I am a person, I think you are a person, whether you admit it or not, who is one of the people with a, voice in shaping what our political culture is. And I believe at some level that political strategy is downstream from political culture.
And more importantly, political strategy is downstream from political money. And if I were to just take a guess, I would say that your brand, Ezra Klein, of political culture is very much appreciated by the political money that is controlling things, because your form of political analysis and political culture doesn't cost them a penny. And they like that. It also doesn't promote much meaningful change. Incrementalism at best, maybe hopes and prayers or something, but you don't seem to understand the pain of the people who are in a lot of pain. So I don't really think anyone is following your political culture. I don't think your political culture is going to shape anything in a meaningful, positive way at this rate. Maybe if you have, a change of heart or something, or you somehow understand the world that you live in, maybe then something will happen.
I think it means exploring things that are uncomfortable and being pretty disciplined in a way maybe I haven't been, about separating the question of what I believe from what I believe will win power.
Definitely. So it's all about power. So just abandon all principles and let's go after power, baby. I mean, that's in vogue these days in the United States. Just go after that raw power. Say whatever you have to say. Throw whoever you have to throw under the bus and get that power.
Because I currently think that the cost of losing power is horrifying and dangerous, and we can't keep doing it.
So now all of a sudden, Ezra Klein, he's horrified by this lack of power. In all these years, when all the different minority groups and various people and people without economic means, people without health insurance, people without all the things that they need, people who've been suffering, that wasn't horrifying, because during those times, people like Ezra Klein, they weren't horrified. But now things have become very horrifying for them, because now people like Trump, they come on TV, they say very rude things, they say scary things, they say things that scare white liberals, white elitists. And now the fear is real. And now I'm sorry, minority groups and all you kind of people, you're going to need to be abandoned a bit, all right? Because we need to find another way. We just do. It's terrifying these days.
Not only do I believe that, I know that. I've seen the focus groups. I've seen the survey data. I've talked to the people who work on this. And that's going to require, changing that is going to require making moves that somehow send a loud enough signal that people begin to think we have changed it at some level.
And by people, he's talking about right-wing people that like to engage in a bit of bigotry, and they're very turned off by the Democrats if they act like they don't like that. And he's seen the research papers, okay? He's seen the statistics. He's seen the polling. He sees the facts. All right, guys? So everyone just get in line. All of you minority people out there, just get in line with Ezra Klein. He's going to control the culture. He's going to get you to not give a shit about the things that are vital to you, and just trust, okay? Trust Ezra Klein.
Sherrod Brown should be able to win in Ohio.
Yes.
The reason he cannot win in Ohio is the Democratic Party itself is a millstone around his neck that drags him down.
Yes, because as I've already described, the Democratic Party really sucks in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. I mean, many people might be hurt to hear that, in the sense that, well, people who are on the left or whatever, because it's what other option is there? How can you hate the home team or not like the home team? But the home team has sold you out. And the home team now with Ezra Klein, they want to just, push all that other stuff on the back burner. Let's do what we need to do to get some power for the sake of power or something. Whatever. The suffering, all of the details, that's just that. Those are just political points, and it's just a political calculation. But let all the grown-ups do the work of getting power, and then somewhere down the line, you're going to be treated like a regular person. But, until then, just don't worry about it.
So what do you do about I'm not here to tell you I got the answer.
Yeah.
What I would feel much better about is if I felt there was like a strategic discipline about finding it.
So he says that he doesn't have the answer, but a minute ago he just said that he's seen the polling. He knows the people, he knows the experts, he knows everyone who does this. So it's not what he thinks, it's what he knows, but he doesn't know. Because, I'm trying to be humble for a second. Let me just calm down a bit. I don't actually know. Okay, when push comes to shove, I know, but for the sake of what I'm saying right now, to appear to be a reasonable person, I don't know. I'm just saying.
I am saying the thing it sounds like I am saying. Mm-hmm. To be very, very clear.
Right.
I think in a place like Nebraska, you should try to run some pro-life Democrats.
I think I want to take back everything that I said. I think this guy is amazing. His political instincts are on point. The way that the Democratic Party turns this entire ship around is to run a few pro-life candidates somewhere. That is the ticket. Now that they've already sort of taken over the issue and overturned Roe v. Wade, they've already gotten what they wanted. Now is the time to run a few pro-life candidates somewhere. That is everything. But also notice how he goes to that and he doesn't address the initial issue, which was whitewashing a guy who peddled in bigotry and hatred and normalized bigotry. But, he doesn't want to close off like that. Let's just talk about the abortion issue. We need to run a couple of anti-abortion, pro-life, whatever you want to say. We need to run a few of those. That's how we turn this baby around. Forget about it. Who cares that no one can afford a house? Food is super expensive. Everything's expensive. Energy's going to rise with all this AI, data centers and all this other kind of stuff. Not to mention that AI is going to take their jobs, not to mention the tariffs, not to mention all the economic issues that people are going to be dirt poor. Millions of people are now going to be taken off of their health care, 50,000 projected, 50,000 at least. More people are going to die per year because of that, and everything's going to hell. So, not to address that, because that's very difficult. We don't want to get into difficult things in the world of politics. We want to get some of the low-hanging fruit, which would be at a time like this, run a couple of pro-life candidates. This guy's a total joke, I'm sorry to say. And the good news and the bad news at once is that with this type of thinking, the Democratic Party is not going to win anything meaningful. It's still going to be the same pendulum sort of thing. We're you've been fed up enough with the Republicans, assuming, of course, there are free elections, that then some Democrats will be voted in, and then this guy will make another theory about why those losers were actually able to win. It was because of some unspoken quality that they have, which actually didn't contribute to anything, but it's going to be something very easy for Ezra Klein to latch on to and create a theory about and write some nice articles about, maybe even write a book about how we turn things around at this pivotal point by Ezra Klein.